So say, how about just talk to him? How about
Well,
this?
should Dave say it? Should Dave say, all right, hi everybody, Dave Tate here.
How's it go? Like, all right.
All right.
All right.
Hi everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Dave Tate here.
Dave Tate here. So I get a shirt now? To be able to
Yeah,
wear a shirt
you
that
do.
says,
You
okay.
do. What size you wear now?
I'm not going to talk about that. Okay. So anyhow, what are we doing here?
All right. So today we're going to talk about 5 ways to increase your bench press. So these are training techniques. So everybody wants to get stronger. We have this week carved out to give you, Dave. We're going to do a whole series on getting your bench better, your squat better, your deadlift better. So this is Dave Tate week on this channel. So what are we doing today, Dave?
We're going to bench. So we're going to start with exercises you can do. And they want me to say guaranteed to increase your bench.
Guaranteed to
Which
bench
I
your
can
bench
say
press.
they're guaranteed to increase your bench.
All right.
So we'll start with 5 exercises guaranteed to increase your bench, and then we'll go from there. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, the first exercise we're going to talk about, and these are in no specific order, by the way, so it's just 5 of my favorite exercises for the bench press, is going to be a close grip bench press. When I say close grip bench press, I'm also speaking of a Spotto press and a JM press. So I'll explain that kind of as we go through, but before that, I want to explain what I mean by close grip. So a close grip bench press, depending upon the size of the person, should be no more than a thumb away from the smooth. So if John, you lay down there, you know, this regular power bar, a thumb away from the smooth, it's just a very easy way to put your thumb to measure out. So that's a thumb away from the smooth. That would be the widest I would want somebody to take their close grip. 1 finger away from the smooth, you know, so you just take a forefinger and there. No, so it would actually be just there. So that's a finger, yeah. A finger away. That would be more optimal, or 2 fingers away is where I like to have most people to kind of gauge it. It's easy to go a thumb away, finger away, you know, instead of going by measurements and so forth, assuming that it's a power bar. And even multi-grip bars are going to still pretty much have the same distance in there, so you can hop up. That's what I mean by a close grip bench press. Now, to increase your bench press with a close grip, I want to try to make sure the lifters are using the least amount of shoulder rotation as they possibly can. So I don't want this, right? So that's when I say Spotto press, JM press, and the reason why those are so popular in the powerlifting community is because it's a shortened range of motion, but it's not the shortened range of motion that's really the determining factor. So it's not because you're just working up here. It's because it's stopping like an inch away, you know, a couple inches away. So when you press out, see, there's less shoulder rotation and more tricep extension. So what we want to do with this exercise is to put more work on the triceps and less work on the shoulders. Not saying you shouldn't work your shoulders. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But for this to be the exercise that I'm talking about, it can be the standard close grip, you know, bench press, which is, I would like to see it be a soft touch, which means you just barely touch or just hit the shirt, then come up. Not a hard touch, not a pause touch, just a soft touch or an inch away, which is a lot of people will call that like a Spotto press. So it's just an inch away bench press. Everybody's got different names for everything. Or, you know, JM press, you just let it drift back a little bit more. The reason I'm using those 3 exercises to describe what I'm talking about is they're kind of all in the same family. So you'll have some people that would be big proponents for JM press, then people get frustrated because they don't know how to do it. Where if they just did a close grip bench press, you know, to a soft touch or an inch away, it's pretty close to the damn same thing. So just down and then, you know, to press out from there again for the triceps. So that I did put that first because I do think that family of movements is probably going to do more for somebody's bench outside of the bench than anything else. All right, before going to the sex one, or the sex one, look at that, my brain, man. Before going to the next one, John wanted me to touch on a couple things. Where should the bar hit? The bar's not really going to touch you, right? But if it did, where would it hit? Anywhere from the nipple to mid-chest. That's the range that we're looking for. Not upper chest, not, you know, in the rib cage area, but nipple to mid-chest is a really good target for 99% of the people to shoot for. If it is, you know, a JM press or a Spotto, it's going to be a little bit higher. But I'm only noting that because if you see somebody doing it in a video and you see that it's a little bit higher than the other, that's not wrong. There's really no wrongs in training, no matter what anybody tells you. There's just how people describe things to try to make them look more intelligent, but that's another conversation. How many sets and how many reps? That is a conversation John and I were having the other day when we were putting together the ideas for this video. A lot of that depends upon what you're bench pressing for. If you're bench pressing to increase your 1 rep max for maximum bench, I'm going to have different recommendations than if you're bench pressing to try to increase your sets of 8 to 10 to be able to build more mass over a period of time. If you fall under the philosophy that you need to use more weight for this 8 to 10 over a period of time to build more muscle, it's going to be a little bit different, but there are some universal things. So if you're building for strength, let me think, for most of the people watching this, you're going to fall within the 5 to 8 range. That's going to cover both. It's going to cover the mass, it's going to cover the strength, where yes, you would want to take it down into the triples if you're hitting a phase where you want to try to peak your strength. All right, so but that's not going to be that often for most people listening to that. Do you want to take it over the 8? If it's a close grip, probably not. Not unless it's a down set and you're just trying to do a burnout set or a challenge set. I probably wouldn't. So I would stick in that 5 to 8 range. How many sets? That's really dependent upon how good somebody's training history, basically how in shape they are with weight training. The reason I say that is if you talk to anybody that's trained for a period of times, triceps are a finicky muscle. When you're done, you're done. For a lot of people, there is no grinding through a tricep. That takes a lot of time to be able to build the strength and the ability to grind through a tricep. Most people just go in and boom, it's like they hit a brick wall. So that's a fatigue, that's an accumulation of fatigue factors. So that's something you can train to make better. But you don't want to be having that happen. So if you do 2 sets of 5 or 2 sets of 8, then that third set you're going to get to 3 or 4 and it's going to hit a brick wall and be done. Don't even do that set. So everybody's going to be a little different. Hit the number of sets that you can hit the required 5 to 8. I like more sets. So I wouldn't say anything over 10. Most people are probably going to fall in a 3 to 5 range. But I put the caveat in there because if you hit that brick wall every single time on set 4, stop doing the set 4 and just increase the reps or shorten the rest period of the sets before that so you can develop the endurance to be able to do that extra set if needed. The next exercise, number 2 on the list, is going to be a floor press. Again, the grips are going to play a factor here. On the floor press, I'm okay if it's a medium grip. I don't really like wide grips on a floor press if you're trying to build your bench up, but each to their own. If you're going to do that, I would make it a very small percentage of the number of sets that you do on the floor press with a wider grip. Keep it to, the close grip range that I was talking about, maybe a little bit wider, but not outside of the rings. I would keep everything inside of the rings. The first question I know people are going to have is, why not do a pin press? Why not do a board press? Why a floor press? Because a lot of people just see those as partial range movements, which they are. They are all partial range movements. So they all are restricted range, or however you want to define that. The difference is, and there's a lot of differences in how the weight's absorbed. If it's absorbed through a board, if say you got 300 pounds, you hit the board, that weight is being absorbed from how long the board is. So some people have 6-foot boards that's being displaced throughout that whole board. So that changes, how the weight is being absorbed into the body during that bottom phase. If it's a pin press and you bring the weight down, the bar settles on the pins, that weight displaces throughout that whole pin. It also completely unloads off the arms. So if you're not keeping your arms tight in the position that they should be, it can wreak havoc on your elbows because you're going from a dead stop into a flex. I'm not saying these are bad exercises. I'm just going to tell you why I'm going with the floor press. With the floor press, when you bring it down and pause on the floor, which you should do, just pause for a split second. It's a static to dynamic impact, kind of like a box squat would be, kind of like a plyometric in a way, without that rebound type thing. So, and you can keep the body tight. The reason I want the floor press, the reason I like the floor press is we're taking the legs out of the movement. So you want your legs out flat. So I want to take the legs out of the movement, which puts more emphasis on the pressing muscles, shoulders, triceps, lats, to be able to stabilize. When you do bring your feet back, have your knee bent, plant them on the floor, you are bringing some of your legs back into the movement, which helps. I want them completely out. Okay, so why not just lay on a bench and put your legs out in front of you on milk crates or whatever it is? That's a good point. You can do that as well, but you're not going to have something stop your arms at the bottom, so that, you know, the bar's still going to be able to hit your chest, and you want that static to dynamic with the floor press. So that's why the floor press is to be able to take the legs out, put more emphasis on the pressing muscles. There's, you know, a mental aspect that goes along with this thing as well, which helps with that from that standpoint. Sets and reps on this I'm going to bring down a little bit, you know, and say that 3 to 5 is where I'm seeing more beneficial there. So why the difference between that and a close grip bench press, where I wanted the repetition ranges to be a little higher? There's more stress on the pressing muscles. So anybody that's done both knows what I'm talking about. So there's still, as I talked about with the triceps being something that fatigues really fast, there is the fatigue management, the accumulation of fatigue that you want to try to manage. So yeah, you can push that up more, but you're going to have to take something out someplace else, which most people probably aren't going to be able to do. So, and I like to have it be, when I say primary exercise, that doesn't mean first exercise. I like the primary exercises to have some type of fatigue before those, to warm up, or however you want to call it. So second movement, it should be ranked up high. It shouldn't be the last exercise that you're going to do, because you want to be able to train it heavy. You want to be able to overload and force it through. The other thing the floor press seems to help a lot of people with is the ability to learn how to press through. You know, because the bench press is a finicky exercise that, you know, a lot of people have mental sticking blocks and stuff like that. But the floor press, when it gets hard, I've seen through experience that when it gets hard, most of the people can find a way to press it through. They don't do that on the bench press. Why, I don't know, but it happens. So that's why I like it, is to be able to teach people how to press through. Right. The third exercise, and you're going to see a reoccurring theme here, close grip incline press. So why so much close grip? The bench press is a lot more arms than it is pecs. Look, people debate all they want. It's not my channel. Leave all the comments you want. I'm never going to read them. So say what you want. I don't care. But that's where I come from. That's what I've always seen. The close grip incline. Let's go back to the floor press for a minute. The floor press, we were taking the legs out to put more emphasis on the pressing muscles. Now what the incline does is it's going to take the lats out, because you're at an incline. No, it's not taking all the lats out. So the haters, leave your comments on there. Yes, I get it. But it's taking a lot of the lats out because you're not flat, you're inclined. But we're keeping the legs in, right? So these also become assessment tools, to where if somebody's, you know, close grip incline, or somebody's incline is very close to their bench press, there should be a discrepancy of maybe 20%, 30%, something along those ranges. If it's the same, then I would argue that they don't know how to keep their lats tight when they bench. Because everything else is working. The shoulders are still doing what they're doing, the triceps doing what they're doing, and now we have the legs back in. All right, if the floor press is very much the same or even higher than a bench press, then I would argue that they don't know how to use their legs, they don't know how to get tight on the bench press. So these are assessed, because when you remove one big aspect, and then that aspect is out, but that lift is close to the same, that's a clue, like Blue's Clues. You always leave clues in the training that you're able to find. So close grip incline press. This one here is going to have the same set and rep range as the close grip bench press did. So a lot of these are going to be the same, because we're talking about building a bench press, building the bench press strength. I don't even know if I would take the close grip incline with, I don't even know if I would do drop sets and stuff on that. I would just keep it the way it is. And that's just experience talking. I've never seen that help anything with anybody, where I have seen drop sets help on a close grip bench press, but just not on a close grip incline. So again, the same grip recommendations that I had before. Where should it touch on your chest? Where the bar is going to be able to travel in a straight line. I mean, it's kind of hard to touch wrong on a close grip bench press without you knowing you screwed something up. So the thing on the close grip incline, any incline press, is don't throw your hips so high up in the air that it actually becomes a flat press. So I'm not saying that your hips always need to be down and you can't arch and you can't bring your hips up some, just to get in a good pressing position to be able to keep your shoulder blades somewhat pressed against the bench. You're going to have to move your hips around, because a lot of the seats aren't going to be optimal, or you may not even use the seat. You may just slide your hips up and then press your back into it. What I am saying is, if you start overarching, then there's no point in doing an incline, just do a flat bench. Ready? The fourth exercise, and it's not really an exercise, I just wrote lat work. Because lat work is, you're gonna see when we get into the next video and we talk about technical aspects, lat work is it's a big thing. So if you don't have any lats, then you're not gonna be able to use your lats. So you need some type of lat work, and it's hard for me to say this is the best lat exercise you're gonna do when I don't know where you train. So I can say chest supported rows are a great lat exercise for the bench press until I find out you don't have a chest supported row and you have to do something like a barbell row or a seal row or something like that. I will say that you need rows, so, and that is just that you want to try to mimic the same movement pattern if people understand that. And it's not, because the eccentric concentric is all different, but you get what I'm saying. So you want that same thing, and you want to make sure that you're not using all traps. It's John and I have done lat training videos in the past where we've talked about that, where if you watch somebody do their lat work, you can see if it's too much shrugging instead of pulling with the lat. So it's there's a big difference between this and this. So you want to engage the lats. Sets and reps, it depends. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say you need to be able to use your lats, and a lot of people don't, so don't feel bad about it, because most people don't. All right, most people don't get it, and a lot of that's because in the past I've done a job of explaining it. Everybody else has done a job of explaining it. How to explain it is irrelevant. It's how to fix it that really matters, and how to teach that. So if you have no clue what I'm talking about, take the reps up, 15, 20, 25, insane amount of reps. Obviously the weight's going to be light, only a couple sets. What you're trying to learn from this, and what you're trying to do, is to teach you how to engage your lats. As a beginning bodybuilder, or even an intermediate bodybuilder, some of the hardest things for them to learn how to do is to pose their lats, how to do a lat spread, how to flare the lats when they're doing a front double bicep and so forth. That mental acuity to be able to understand how to flex the lat is what has to be developed. So the higher repetitions with the lighter weight is going to allow that, because the focus isn't going to fall on the arms. So if you take somebody that's an intermediate or a beginner and you push the lat work really heavy and you watch what happens, they're pulling with their arms tremendously. So they're pulling, I call it pulling with their fist. So you can see they're pulling with their fist, and there's a lot of bicep work. You watch somebody that's experienced, that's been around the block a long time, you see more of the emphasis is coming on pulling the elbows back. So they're trying to move the weight with the elbows, not the hands. So that's why the high rep. Now I'm going to flip this on its head. The more advanced the lifter becomes, they're going to have to start pulling with their hands instead of their elbows. But that's not, you guys probably guarantee that. I'm just putting this out because if you hear me saying that, that's a different demographic that I'm talking to for a different reason. So it does matter, but it doesn't matter if you don't even know the difference between the two, which if you don't know the difference between the two, that defaults the answer to learn how to pull with your elbows. So the rows are going to be the easiest way to learn that with. I'm not saying pull downs are not important, that chins are not important. They most definitely are. They should be part of every program. But it's very hard to teach somebody to pull with their elbows when they're doing a vertical press or vertical row compared, or vertical pull down compared to a horizontal row. Last, number 5 is shoulder work. Just like the lats, I don't have an exercise to put out there, but I have recommendations. If you're trying to increase your bench press, in my opinion, your shoulder work, a large part of your shoulder work should be nothing more than just pumping the shoulders with as much blood as you possibly can with the lightest weight that you can get away with. The shoulder is a very complex joint that for powerlifters and people doing heavy strength training takes a pounding. So I don't like, if the goal is to be able to increase a bench press, increasing that pounding unless somebody can tell me they know definitively with 100% that heavy pounding exercise has a direct carryover to their bench. A lot of people it does. I'm not going to say it doesn't. Most, they don't know. So if they don't know, just pump things out of your shoulders, because there's nothing more that those heavy shoulder exercises are going to do that you haven't already done if you're training all the other compound movements heavy. So from that standpoint, I like little series, little circuits like front raises, side raises, rear raises, all done together as a triset. 15, 20 reps, doesn't matter. You know, it can be TRX straps, it can be battle ropes, whatever it is. Do a few sets to where when you set it down, you're like, oh man, your arms feel like shoulders feel like they're blown up. You got some of the traps feeling like it's blown up, but it's not all trap, it's all shoulders. Once it feels like it's blown up, pumped up, fatigued, however you want to define it, stop. No sense in going further into that, because if you go too far, you're going to start to lose, you know, the fullness or the pump or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying the pump is necessary. It's a good gauge to know where the intensity and the volume is enough, right? So some people are going to take more, some people are going to take less. So, you know, I understand, you know, the pump is the cure and all. I understand a lot of other people, you know, where that comes from and how that plays in. I've always looked at it as that's that spot where it's the peak, right? So that's the peak of training that muscle, where you want to get out of that peak before it completely falls all the way down. So no flattening the curve when it comes to shoulder pumps. Get them up there and get out of the peak before it flattens the curve. All right, I'm done with that one. Okay. Make sure to check back tomorrow. I'm supposed to point up here because there's going to be a little box like in a day, or it's there now. I don't know. But check back, because when it comes to breaking sticking points, there's three main pillars to overcoming weak point sticking points. There's mental, which I'm not going to talk about that at all. Then there's physical, and there's technical. For the bench press today, I discussed the physical. All right. Tomorrow, I'm going to discuss the technical, which in my opinion, it's more important. So when people ask me about overcoming sticking points, I always tell them it's 80% technical, 10% physical, 10% mental. So what I went over today was only 10% of how to increase your bench press. Tomorrow, we're going to hit the other 80%. And then the other 10%, well, that's on your own, because I don't deal with mental aspects online.